I'd like to go through some of the uses of our single line drops. So the single line drops, usually there are 2 of these will come with each system that are just ropes with the sliding Ropeman device on it that can lock in place or also be slid on the rope depending on which way you're pulling that. So with any system, whether it be a smaller rehab station like this or a larger rehab module, there's also provided a number of eye bolts. These eye bolts can be mounted in any configuration into any of the cross members, and so you would typically use these in conjunction with the eye bolts to hang them from those particular locations. So just going to show you a couple options of how you can use these for different functional training activities and exercises. So one would be simply hanging it on an eye bolt here and taking a harness such as our balance harness here, and the balance harness has an attachment point in the center between the shoulder blades, but also has attachment points on the shoulders. So if I want to just do a center point attachment, I would just simply hook that to the center piece here, facing the carabiner away from the patient's back, like so, and then I could just lift up on the Ropeman here and adjust the amount of support and have the patient put the harness on here and do some real dynamic types of balance activities. The single line drop allows a little more freedom of movement for the person to explore when they're doing balance activities. If I wanted to provide a little more support for somebody who I wanted to kind of restrict their movement a little bit, I would use 2 of these, and in this case I would hang another one. I'm going to go from these locations. These 2 eye bolts are about 2 feet apart, which works out pretty well a lot of times to have a couple about 2 feet apart. And then what we can do is we can go from each of the shoulders here, like so, and then we just have to adjust each shoulder individually to support the patient while they're in the harness. It gives, again, a little bit more support and a little more restriction of movement, depending on how much slack you leave in the system. So that's using the height adjustment Ropemans on the single line drops for harnesses. Another thing we can do in this configuration, if you have 2 of these hanging down, you can effectively do TRX type of activities. So in this case, I'll take some handles here, place them in our carabiners, and we're going to lower these down a bit, like so that they're even. Now we can do some of our typical TRX type activities, maybe a chest press. You can turn around obviously and lean back and do a pull. Obviously the device would be anchored into the floor. If you're going to be doing any of these activities, you'd have to have this anchored into the floor. Another thing I can do with these rope in this position here is use our strength bar here that has rotating ends, and we're going to place that on each of these carabiners. And then we're going to lower this down a little bit for this next activity. Kind of get that level. And then if I had a chair or could pull a person into this position, or they could be facing the other direction as well, hands could be resting on here and they can do some nice pushing forward, do some sit to stands with kind of this floating bar option. That's also nice for doing just gravity reduced type of activities in this position for somebody who has really weak upper extremities, CVA patients and so forth, to work on extension and flexion of their arm. You can also work on rotation and those kind of activities. Another activity that can be done with the single line drops is shoulder pulleys. So the system also comes with, as far as the strength and pulley system, comes with this carabiner that has a roller built into it. So you're going to take your carabiner with the roller, and we're going to place our single line drop inside of that, and so it kind of can pivot around that. And we're going to clip that into this eye bolt here in the center. I'm going to lengthen this as long as it can go here, and then I'm going to go ahead and place 2 of my handles on each end here. And I can pull my chair into place here, and then I can use these as a shoulder pulley. and then I can just adjust the length of this if I need to give me extra range of motion or less range of motion depending on how much range of motion the patient has for doing these activities.